Welcome to the Talent Lab Solutions EdTech Insight Series. I'm Michael O'Kon, one of the founders of Talent Lab Solutions. At Talent Labs, our mission is to help companies in the education space solve their problems as they work to unlock the potential of all learners.
And I'm Chris Blackett. Today we have an incredibly inspiring guest joining us, Shawna Young, CEO of Camelback Ventures. Shawna has spent over 25 years transforming educational nonprofits and EdTech organizations, from leading the Scratch Foundation, the world's largest coding platform serving over 100 million children, to her work at Duke Talent Identification Program, MIT Office of Engineering Outreach Programs, and Ada Developers Academy. And now she's at the helm of Camelback Ventures, an organization dedicated to investing in entrepreneurs of color and women who are building ventures that create more equitable communities.
Shawna, welcome. We're thrilled to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, Chris and Michael.
Yeah, let's get into it. So Shawna, you've had an incredible career trajectory from science educator in North Carolina, shout out to teachers, to leading some of the most impactful organizations in education technology. Can you walk us through your journey and what ultimately brought you to Camelback Ventures as CEO?
Yeah, I think it starts all the way from Fayetteville, North Carolina, where I was raised. And when I was in middle school, my parents decided to open their own gymnastics facility or business. And I just remember, I felt like we were just climbing up to what it meant to be middle class. And then they decided to be entrepreneurs. And it was just like, the business had to take a center stage when it came to financial resources for our family. And I remember those sacrifices as a teenager. I'll say it didn't feel great, right? Because I was a teenager and you're selfish when you're a teenager sometimes. You just want the things you want. But now, almost 40 years later, I see that my parents, who still have this family-ran business, are like a pillar in the community of Fayetteville. Many young people have gone through countryside gymnastics. And the legacy is something you can't quantify with financial numbers, right? And so that helped me understand and see sort of what it means to be entrepreneurial, even if I wasn't an entrepreneur that young. Not just what, in some cases, decisions you'd have to make, I won't call them sacrifices, or that you could hold your whole, not just community, but your staff and your team and build at a time with as two, Black founders, which we would just call small business leaders, could not get a loan from their local bank to start their business. So they had to start on credit card debt. So now, as I am CEO of Camelback Ventures, I understand that journey. Along the way, thought I wanted to become a doctor like most people, doctor, lawyer, engineer. When I was at Howard in undergrad, I understood that I really wanted to help people. So I left Howard with an undergrad in chemistry, decided to go to GE for 1 year because it was a great opportunity to be at GE in the late 90s, but I wasn't full. My cup was not full. And so I quickly, after 1 year being in this sort of training program for leadership, decided to quit and become a teacher. I remember I got that 2-parent phone call, when your parents like, okay, now you're going to be a doctor, then you go to GE, and now you're going to quit all those things with no job to become a teacher. You don't have a teacher job yet. But it was the best decision of my life, because immediately walking into the classroom in North Carolina as a lateral entry teacher, meaning I had not been trained to be a teacher, I found my home. It was hard. I found mentor teachers who were incredible. And I really got connected to this idea of the aha moment with young people. So I went from Sun Valley High School, which was sort of suburban outside of Charlotte, to get my master's in science education at UNC Chapel Hill, to going into Hillside High School, predominantly Black high school in Durham, North Carolina, to do student teaching. Stayed there after that to become a science teacher. And I never looked back from my decision to go into education. Every day was different. Every day was new. And I just had so much joy. When I became a mom, I realized that I needed a different way or space to really engage in education. I moved to Boston, which had this whole new world of education nonprofits that I didn't even know about. And so I went from a short stint at EDC, Education Development Center, to MIT. And again, it was like coming home, being the executive director of now the MITES office, MIT Science and Engineering Technology program. Every day was so impactful and not the same. And so I stayed there for 8 years, and I impacted over 3,000 young people from around the country and in Boston, and helped them really see that not just the science and engineering could be a place for them, but MIT could be a place for them. And that's going from traveling the country from DC to Detroit to all the places, and helping young people in these urban centers know that MIT was where they could call home for academics in high school. And so from that, including Boston, and so from that, our young people, MIT was like, if they got there, it's fine. But even if they didn't, they were incredible. And so plan B for them became Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. That's just a different mindset. And so after 8 years there, I went on to Duke University to run the Duke Talent Identification Program, where I was identified in seventh grade. And that went from I also got my MBA from MIT in the time of being there. So running a $35 million nonprofit organization was life-changing, because I realized the power in helping shift an ecosystem, an institution that was built not necessarily for people of color, but how can you change that? So we increased access. We were able to get more funding. We showed up in places to help them know that being academically gifted was not designated to one group of people.
Yeah.
Anybody could do that, right? With the right resources and support. And so when I shifted over to being executive director of Scratch Foundation, it was my first time of sort of spinning out of higher education and being part of a standalone nonprofit, and also an EdTech nonprofit organization that had been around for a long time, but was really spinning out to be a standalone nonprofit from MIT, and having my own tech team, product team, design team, and really being part of a team that was shifting from a technology that was built for people to just use as it was, to how do we build for the communities that we serve globally. And so I learned a lot there. And in 2022, I took a break, to really say, what do I want to do next? What does it mean to have sort of life coaching when you're well into your career? And from that, I realized that my passion was being part of organizations built for access and built for providing opportunities for communities of color. That's when I went to Ada Developers Academy, which is a coding school for women and women of color. And it was a challenging time, because it was right after a lot of tech organizations and companies had cut their teams.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a financial model that was built on having almost 95% tech companies paying for training our students who were women and women of color. And so we had to quickly shift our financial model. I was able to help with our team become more stable. And I arrived at Camelback Ventures in April 2024 with lots of experience, from classroom to higher education, standalone nonprofits, and really primed for this moment of now that Camelback is in.
Wow, that is such an incredible journey, and I see so many parallels to kind of the work I've done. For those who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about what Camelback Ventures does?
Absolutely. And I want to share that along the journey too, I became a social entrepreneur. So starting in 2020, I co-founded Onyx Black Wealth Collective, which was focused on how we help people in our community really build and protect wealth. I also co-founded Future Innovators, so a group of nonprofit leaders in STEM education, AI, and tech education, and Mosaic, which is a career accelerator for young people who were interested in careers in STEM and entrepreneurship. Share that, because Camelback is about supporting social entrepreneurs and helping them build, giving early capital, content, and community to them. In many cases, the first institutional check of $40,000, and help them really addressing this issue of early capital for communities of color and women in particular. They're invested entrepreneurs that often build their ventures on $20,000 of credit card debt, while their counterparts build on $100,000 to $250,000 of friends and family round. So that is what we do at Camelback Ventures. So 10 years later, we have supported with $9 million of early capital. We've supported over 200 entrepreneurs. They have turned that investment into catalytic impact in our communities around the country and world, including over $365 million in follow-on funding, 5 million lives impacted, and over 1,000 jobs created, only from what we are able to gather from our survey. So we know it's more than that.
It's amazing. Just hearing your story made me realize how important every step of your journey was, because you've seen the importance of like community building through your parents' gymnasium, and like as a teacher, you have seen the importance of like early childhood education and like every part of investing in the value chain all the way through like talent identification and things like that. It's really amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
One of the things that really stands out about Camelback is this manifesto and concept that you have of being ruthless for good. What does that phrase mean to you, and how does it show up in the work you do every day?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Relentless. I say you sort of go hard in the paint, for what we believe in, the founders we believe in, and this belief that the world is altruistically good at its heart. We can get to this space of what we believe is true freedom for all communities, right? And by empowering entrepreneurs who are closest to their communities, by giving them what they need from capital to content to communities, then we can absolutely achieve that. And so we're ruthless for ensuring that good happens in our broader community. So you can also think of it like sometimes communities might be more self-focused, entrepreneurs might be more self-focused. That is not what we're focused on. How do we ensure that our broader community is reaches its full potential together?
Yeah, that connects to one of our values at the Marcy Lab School, tough love. So at Marcy Lab actually has the benefit of being one of the folks funded by Camelback Ventures, and so thank you for that. But at Marcy, I feel like we really deeply invest in the young folks that we work in, and we hold them to high standards, but we also give them lots of support. So that sounds like a lot like Ruthless for Good. So on that, let's talk about Camelback's investment thesis. What types of companies and entrepreneurs are you looking for?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Mike. And we love Ruben.
We do
So
too.
You're obligated to say that,
I
Michael.
know, but I said it anyway. It was true. The basic credentials are like meaning that you're a U.S. based organization, that you're serving primarily communities in the United States, that you are we are selecting an individual that is part of the founding team or co-founder who really came up with the idea. And then in terms of verticals, we're looking for new innovations in education and in technology, primarily EdTech. We do sometimes look at some innovations in health tech and fintech that are exciting that we will give some early capital to. Have an education layer to them. So those are the fundamental criteria. But then I'll say to you that we really look at the founder. Or co-founder, how passionate are they about what they are building? How proximately are they to the not just necessarily problem, because it also could be solution that they are building, innovation they are building. And so that's important to us because we know often communities are sometimes provided solutions that are not connected to who they are and what they do. And because of good marketing, they become the solution used. And so we're trying to also keep that from happening in our communities. And so we talk often too about this idea of like hungry and humble. So meaning that you are very focused on the problem and the issue and the innovation you are building, and you are focused in making sure that it happens. At the same time, we are building a community of entrepreneurs who have the ability to connect with each other, help each other, and have a broader span of impact.
Is there so the focus is on education, but is there a specific segment within the education market, like high school or et cetera, that you focus on?
No, we don't segment down to that. We really also try, even with those verticals, try to be as open as possible to see what our founders are solving for. Who are they solving with, and what are they solving for, and what are they building? And so we really look at what comes through our application pool. This year, so we have 2 application cycles, one in the spring and one in the fall. And we had over 800, almost 800 in our last cycle. And we're excited that we have grown our sort of cohort size from just a year ago from 12 to 20. So that's helped us really be able to support and more entrepreneurs. It is larger, by almost double the size. But we know that this kind of goes with what this moment requires. If you listen to some of the things I've said in the past, I talk about opportunity and disruption, and the opportunity of now. And even though it feels very uneasy, these structures that are being broken down, we know many of them are built for our communities. And so we want to make sure that now we are more than ever investing in entrepreneurs who are building right now and ensuring that they can those innovations come to life in this moment.
Yeah. That's phenomenal. I'm curious if you can share some examples of the types of entrepreneurs who are building in this space that you've been particularly excited to support.
Yeah, well, let me name. We have 200, and they are all phenomenal. Put it out there. My disclaimer is
It's
out
hard to
there.
pick favorite. It's like picking a favorite kid, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. So not favorites, but a couple that come to mind that are doing some cool innovations. And I've done some just recent talks with them, even some podcasts with them. And one of them is Abraxas Higgins. He is building Parish Tech, which is a sort of a justice tech platform that helps address the issue of many of our families, unfortunately, are justice impacted, and they send remittances back to their communities that are in the justice system. That work, that consistent transfer of dollars, is not documented anywhere. So he is actually building a platform that helps build credit for families that are supporting their justice impacted family members. That's exciting. It's very innovative and
So
new.
exciting, yeah.
Yeah, I'm also excited about Tiffany Green. Just literally talked with her yesterday with a number of our supporters. She continues to build Uprooted Academy. Her personal experience as a counselor, and in schools, she's building a platform that will help young people build their understanding of what they want to do in terms of going to college and mental health. At the same time, she often describes it as, imagine a Boys and Girls Club that's virtual. You're able to go into that space and get the resources you need, and partner also with companies that can provide understanding of jobs and opportunities there too. And so those are two examples, just examples, because I want to shift this sort of myth of exceptionalism, right? And really talk about examples of people when given the support and resources and opportunity, that what they can build. And so there are two examples of our incredible alumni community, which includes also Mercy Labs and Ruben. So I'll uplift those two examples.
Thank you. This is not a paid advertisement.
Yeah, I mean, that really resonates because, opportunity is not equally distributed, but everyone is capable of being an entrepreneur if they have a community at their back like Camelback.
Absolutely. And we've been, as we're going into 2026 and 10 years of history, we're shifting also to like this question of who gets to build, right? Like we know that opportunity is equally distributed talent is like equally distributed and opportunity is not. But now it's like who gets to build with that talent? And how are we actively addressing that issue that is not equitable?
So the funding landscape has changed dramatically over the past few years. We've seen the Great Reset in venture capital, budget cuts in education, and organizations competing for increasingly scarce philanthropic dollars. How has Camelback adapted to this current market environment?
Yeah, it's a hard time, right? But we are actually counter to what people would think in terms of how we're addressing it by investing more in entrepreneurs who are innovating, increasing our cohort size, and recognizing that they're going to need a different tool of support. So we have shifted our internal structure to have partner roles internal to our organization that are checking in with our founders, a whole group of 200, every 4 months. So quarterly check-ins for those who are available. What are their needs? What are they finding? What are the supports that are needed? We actually relaunched our wellness stipend. So giving out capital to our entrepreneurs who just need a moment, whether that's from, I need to pay my staff, or I need to take a break and go get a massage or go to the gym. We want to give them those resources, and also wellness sessions that they can go to, help them think about really how did they stay well in this moment, because that's important. And I also think that entrepreneurs who are building now are going to be the most resourceful. It is hard.
Yeah.
Being a co-founder of literally a nonprofit startup, I see how hard it is to even get the early capital you need. And so we are providing that too. So how do we select founders who are courageous enough to build in this moment, support them with our fellowship, support our alumni group with wellness stipends and tailored support internally with our team. And then also how we also helping them with content that will help them become stronger operators. In this moment in time, it is, even as a person who's been a leader, executive director, and CEO for almost 20 years, I am constantly thinking about how to ensure that Camelback is is thriving in this moment and at least sustaining in this moment. And so we have to work with our founders to help them think through, their staffing structure, alternative income revenue opportunities, even as a nonprofit. Are there some fee for service opportunities there? Do they need everybody and all the expenses they currently have? Can they tighten up? Even if they have a runway of 6 months, can they make it tighter? Because right now it might be taking 6 to 12 to 18 to 24 months for some grants to come through. And then some people might be seeing retractions of confirmed funding. So what do you do when that happens? Those are all conversations that we're having with our founders right now. So I still believe, I'm optimistic about now, because you have AI, you have people who are still giving out resources and supporting founders during this time, and people who are still building. And this is not the time to retract.
Yeah, the market is incredibly difficult right now, and I think a lot of people are pretty pessimistic. So it's great to hear your optimism and great to hear your investment holistically for all the folks that you're working with. All the stipends are so important to just keep you sane when everything feels like unpredictable and like it's difficult to manage. So
Yeah.
appreciate that approach.
Thank you.
And so you mentioned that, even funding grants that are confirmed are at risk of being retracted. In one of your recent LinkedIn posts, you mentioned that even small grants are seeing 3 to 4 times as many applications. So more applicants for less funding. The funding is uncertain. What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs, especially nonprofit entrepreneurs who are trying to navigate this challenging funding environment?
Yeah, I would think about program model. I would think about structure there. Is there a way in which you can, at this time more than ever, start up with contracting staff, with volunteer staff, being a lot more nimble in your structure, start smaller. Right now, if you have another source of income, if you have a full-time job or something else, how do you keep that a bit longer and keep testing out your model before you actually decide to shift into full-time entrepreneur?
Hmm.
Think about maybe a longer runway also before you shift into full-time entrepreneur, because we're also finding that when people, it's taking longer to get a job back if you decide to shift out of it, right? So being a lot more understanding of that and encouraging people to have an understanding of like, what is the tested model you're trying to build. With that said, there's also more opportunity right now with people who are in the job market who will take on contract work or have multiple people because they're like, I just want to do work that I'm passionate about. Oh, they can't get a role. It's like, actually, I'm okay financially that I could take on a smaller piece of something I care about than trying to go get a large scale job doing something I don't care about. Take advantage of that moment too. We've seen in our organizations and our portfolios, and even as the ones that I'm co-founder of, that we're able to get some really incredible contracted work, volunteers who are working with us and want to see us get to a certain point and for something that we can afford. So I would not underpay people, but
Yeah.
have honest conversations with them to say, like, how can you step out what you want to build and not rush to a large scale piece or go into personal debt that will take you a long time to get out of.
That's a really interesting perspective, because I do, think that in, a particularly challenging political environment, people are craving some way to be involved, and supporting nonprofits, especially nonprofit entrepreneurs, is one I hadn't really considered. Michael,
Yeah, one.
might take on more.
Yeah, we're here. You've dedicated your life, Shawna, to creating opportunities for underserved populations. What do you think is the most important for investors, accelerators, and ecosystem builders to understand about serving entrepreneurs from the communities Camelback focuses on?
Take the time to get to know the community first. Even, if you're funding and you're passionate about funding a community that you are not necessarily directly lived in, that's still great. We need everyone to be at the table supporting the work we do. And I would say, in this moment in time, if I would say like sort of correction, or there'll be another reform movement, we cannot go through another movement of sort of like saviorism. It has to, and it can't be invited in to give feedback. It can't be built together. Like, I actually think co-building or co-developing is plan B.
Yeah.
Mm,
Plan A is let the community build, empower the community to build. And that's not based on race, gender, whatever. It's whoever is closest to the thing, the innovation in the community, whatever it is, allow them the ability to build for them. And then that will be holistically better for everybody. And so I think understanding is the most important piece. What is their why? Why do they feel like it is important? And why is there an actual, when you say intentionally underinvested, right? Intentionally is an important word. These are communities that the framework was built for them to be exactly where they are right now, where we are right now. This is not a misnomer, like, I can't believe this. Well, we can believe it. It was all scripted, and we're here now. So how can we take this moment of now to create the world we believe our great-grandchildren should have? We, all of us, not one group, all of us. And as much as we believe or think that America has achieved wealth and done all these things, there's a significant amount of talent on the sidelines. It is a small amount that we have achieved for a small group of people. Imagine if all that were unlocked. For our country and the world, it would be game changing.
Yeah.
And I get up every morning believing in that. I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina. I've been able to ascend all the things that I am not an anomaly. I'm an example. So we have to shift our mindset around who can achieve, who can accomplish. It's important.
Yeah. I really appreciate that perspective on, like, not even co-developing, really. Michael and I, one of our newsletters early on, talked about, Mark Zuckerberg dropped $200 million into the New York public school system, and nothing happened because obviously he was not familiar with this community. The community was not involved, etc. You have written a lot about this concept, which I found really fascinating and a bit intimidating, called opportunity embargoes, which is this concept, right, that people, especially Black people, Black communities, women, face these systemic barriers from, political disenfranchisement, which we see everywhere, gerrymandering, redlining, etc. I don't know what to do about these things, but how do you see entrepreneurship as a tool for addressing some of these systemic challenges?
Yeah, I really appreciate the question, Chris. And that phrasing was an answer to this verbiage or this language of gap. Achievement gap, opportunity gap. And I spent my whole career like, it's a gap. I can feel it. It's a gap. It's a gap. Like, I can get over this gap. I can jump, hop. We're going to do all these things. And it literally took a few years ago when I paused. I said, this is not a gap. Like, a gap you can actually close. We've been spending years trying to literally close the gap. Like, you see it on papers, on news articles, close the gap. It's not a gap. It's not. We're not going to close the gap because it's not a gap. It's an embargo. It's a systemic embargo that has been anchored in policy across this country and structures and communities, how they were built and continue to be built. And so if we think about it in that way, we approach it totally differently. It's a very different approach we will use when it comes to doing our work if we understand what we are up against. And so that is why I'm saying we are up against an embargo and not a gap. And that is how, in this moment in time, Camelback can say, we're investing more when many would say, let's hold. We're putting everybody in, our whole team is all in, to support our entrepreneurs because we're up against an embargo of resources. And I think what entrepreneurs can do is that they will innovate in spite of, right? You're going to say no to me? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to ask this person. I'm going to do this on nothing. I'm going to figure this pilot. I'm going to do this piece. I'm going to do all this. And then I'm going to have something. And eventually you will either say yes or you will miss out. Two options. Because entrepreneurs build regardless. They don't plan forever. They get out there and they do. And that's what I love about entrepreneurs.
Yeah. It's fascinating because I love the language of embargo because you think about other countries where the U.S. might embargo trade with them, and that country or community, their entrepreneurs build alternative financial systems and things like that. And so, yeah, you're saying basically we have to do this for Black communities and other disenfranchised communities in the U.S.
Yeah, such a change of mind frame that is so helpful to think about. Chris and I did Teach for America, so we talked about the opportunity gap all the time.
Which also
So-
puts the onus sort of on the student, right? A gap makes it feel like this is an individual issue, whereas,
Yeah.
if you have a good
Absolutely.
teacher.
And I taught during that time, and it was very student-centered. If I do extra tutoring, if I do all this, it's like, it is the system
Yeah.
The system.
are doing the best they can in the system that was created for them to not thrive.
Would love to hear you have a long journey of leadership and CEO, executive director, et cetera. Would love to hear some of the key leadership lessons that you've learned throughout your career and how you're bringing them to Camelback.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I think one of the things I learned is the importance of the team, of your team, and trust. And as a leader, care. Even when you have to make hard decisions, how do you do that with care? How do you do it in a way in which if you were that person on the other side, you on the receiving end, you'd want to be treated? And how do you build trust? In often cases over time with a team, in many of my, pretty much all my organizations, I came in as new to the organization, individually new. So, right, I had to understand what it meant for where they were, meet them where they are. And in many cases, did not understand how they were led before, who was in the seat before. And so I've learned a lot through personally my own executive coaching to have real conversations about how I'm showing up as a leader, and how in some cases that needs to be a bit different and more reflective. Like, what can I do more and differently? I often shift from, even if there is something that was challenging or not exactly how I had planned, I do a lot of self reflection as a leader. And I am often apologize as a leader too. I think it is. I also learned that the difference between sort of like that quick, I just need to raise money and whoever will give me money, to like long-term relationships when it comes to fundraising. So many of our supporters at Camelback or places I worked before are now long-term friends of mine. And there's times when they will become funders of where I am, and times when they will not be funders of where I am because there's not a match or it's not the right timing. But we have a long-term relationship as an organization. So an example is many of my funders, even from Mites, are now like, we're at the same time funding Camelback, and they are like incredible people that I love already. Oh my gosh, now we're together at Camelback, you know? Same thing with some of our entrepreneurs. We're students of mine now. Telling my age, but students at MIT, and like literally now a Camelback fellow. It just gives me so much joy.
Yeah.
And the piece around, I also talk about social capital, and that's this idea of the importance of like a Rolodex, for those who remember what that is,
Hmm.
versus cash, right? Because having people that you can call on, not just for like sort of monetary capital, but connections and understanding and guidance through social capital is a game changer for entrepreneurs in particular, and many who may not have that already in their arsenal. So helping them really build that social capital over time. Things that we have, like our Guardian Summit, which we hope people will come to, is every summer. Next summer it's going to be June 11th and 12th in New Orleans. The anchor there is to have our founders have connections with funders and investors and partners that they may not know at all. Many of our founders, their income, if they're a nonprofit, is philanthropy, large scale philanthropy. And it takes a while to get those dollars, and they're not flexible often. So being able to connect with more individual donors who can support the work they're doing helps them also innovate. And then the last thing I'll say is I had to be okay with who I am as a person and a leader, that I have to show up as my authentic self and help people adjust to it sometimes as a new leader, but I can't lead as someone I am not.
Yeah, these are all incredible. I can tell you've been a leader for a long time. These lessons that you've learned are really hard ones, and I've had to learn them over time as being a leader, how to build a strong team, how to establish and maintain trust, right? How to maintain relationships and build relationships, and then also be your authentic self. These are the skills that take you from a good leader to a transformational leader, and they're really hard to learn.
Oh, thank you. And you have to add to that fail.
Hmm.
Able to take the risk, and often our founders don't get the opportunity to fail. It's one shot out there, right? And so how do we give them grace? How do we give them like resources so that they can try again? It's incredible to be in the room with a founder who's done more than one entity, organization, startup. The confidence beams off of them. Like literally, you're like, their head is a little higher, they're just calm. They take the fails a little easier. They just navigate the world in a different way. And they think about how anything is solvable. So giving more of our entrepreneurs that chance to fail and do again is also important. And leaders too.
Yeah. I think about my own journey, right? One of the things I was always afraid to do was fail, right? Because I thought, this is my one shot to get to where I need to be, get out of Newark and go to Tufts and do the next thing. And so, I had to learn to kind of fail fast and quickly and learn from those experiences. And so definitely resonate with that.
Absolutely.
So Camelback celebrated its 10-year anniversary recently. What is your vision for the next decade of Camelback Ventures?
Oh gosh, 10 years. That's a good question. Thank you so much, Chris. And I alluded to this a little earlier, the shifting into what does it mean to build? Who gets to build? So that is where my vision and my mindset is right now, is like, who gets to build the next thing, the next impactful nonprofit, the next impactful for-profit organization that's anchored in the communities that we serve and we know. And how do we answer that? So one is, we know they need capital, we know they need community, we know that they need content, but also right now, in this exact moment, they have to be very strong operators of organizations. And so that helps us think about, how do we support entrepreneurs? How do we gather more financial resources so we can give more to them? How do we support them even after the fellowship of 4 weeks? And what does that look like in terms of continued content? One thing I think about is, often entrepreneurs, we don't get continuing education like when you're a teacher. Like he's like, you have to go back, do that workshop, that content, here's what's new in the field. And we're often learning like on the job, real time, with limited resources. And so how do we think about what's needed for our entrepreneurs to get content that will help them early on map out plans, think things out, not always have to learn through fire what makes sense for their organization. And so that's one thing that we're thinking about too. The main thing is like, who gets to build? How do we support our entrepreneurs to be stronger operators? How do we move more dollars to them? How do we create a stronger ecosystem and a stronger community for them? How do we also partner? So you'll see more of what we do. We partner with our other entrepreneur support organizations, our ESOs, and even nonprofits to get the word out, to change the narrative on who an entrepreneur is and should be. So a lot to come in the next 10 years.
There'll be 1,000 cohort entrepreneurs.
We hope so.
All right, let's move into our next section. This is a new one that we're trying out, actually. It's called Rapid Fire Questions. We're going to give you 2 options most of the time, and we just want to get your gut reaction. What comes to mind first? Want to kick us off, Chris?
Yeah, sure. So, Shawna, you're in Boston, but you spend a lot of time in New Orleans. Lobster roll or po' boy?
Boy. No boy.
That was easy. Let's move on to the next one. Kindergarten or college? Which is more important?
Kindergarten, every day of the week. The start is so important. How strong you get, access, resources, all the things, creativity, kindergarten, every day of the week.
I agree.
I was a kindergarten teacher, and so I also agree.
Unanimous.
So you've worked across the entire education spectrum. What would be your advice to a young person today about college or navigating upskilling through an alternative route?
Yeah, I actually think it's what's best for them. Know yourself. Spend time really thinking about the type of learning environment that's going to support you. I've done both and I've benefited from both. There's sometimes when I need more structure and I need more curriculum and set to get things done. That's not for everybody. So I think the first thing you do is do self-analysis of what's going to help you at this moment in time. And don't feed into the belief that it has to all be when you turn 18. You got to have all the answers. For some people, they need to actually go and have some alternative experiences to understand what their learning style is, and then decide how they go into their next career. And that still may be an alternative like methodology. And for some people, the structures that are put in place work for them, and that's fine. Both should be fine for whoever that individual is.
Beautiful. All right, last one. This is a tough one. Save the hardest one for the last one. If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the social impact ecosystem tomorrow, what would it be?
Access.
Beautifully said. Access. You're great at this.
And hopefully our listeners understand your perspective on expanding.
Thank you.
Shawna, thank you so much for this incredibly insightful conversation. I'm feeling particularly inspired. Your work at Camelback Ventures and throughout your career has touched millions of lives, and it's clear that you're building something really transformative.
To our listeners, if you found this discussion valuable, please like, subscribe, and share. Join us next time as we continue to explore the cutting edge of education and technology. For more information on Talent Lab Solutions and our work in the education and workforce development space, visit our website at talentlabsolutions.com and follow the Talent Lab Solutions Substack.
And if you're an entrepreneur of color or a woman building a social impact venture, definitely check out Camelback Ventures in June 11th, June 12th in New Orleans and consider applying to their fellowship program.
Thank you for tuning in to the Talent Labs EdTech Insight series. Until next time.